Welcome to the second episode of Cyber Talks with Sham, business manager from SPG Resourcing. Hi Sham, how are you doing?
Good, Casper. How are you?
Quite good myself. Quite happy that we had the opportunity to speak today.
Pleasure.
Sham, can you introduce yourself quickly? No, take your time. Can you let us know what is your role in SPG Resourcing?
Yeah, so obviously my name is Sham. I'm a new business manager at SPG Resourcing, and I work in the cybersecurity market in Europe. So I look after Netherlands, Belgium, and have been sort of using my network over the past 10 years and creating a new network to sort of, build our presence out in Europe in IT security and cybersecurity.
So we are making sure that the companies have the best cybersecurity personnel they need, right?
We try. We definitely try. I mean, it's definitely a challenging market, and there's a lot of competition rising in the market. But I think my clients trust me.
Okay. Speaking of the competition, why do you think your clients choose SPG Resourcing and not somebody from India or some other company from Benelux?
Well, culture is a big part of it. So, you have to be able to understand what a client's culture is like, and what they like to hire. And I've lived and worked in the Netherlands and Belgium, and I understand the language. So it just makes it easier for me to plug in very, very quickly and understand, what their internal challenges are within the business, where their needs lie, what their vision is, and what their growth strategy is. And then off the back of that, I can tailor my search to, find them the ideal match. So, going back to how important culture is, understanding sort of the Dutch culture and the Belgian culture it's a big part of the job.
Okay, so that's your advantage over somebody who's not from the country. Makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not from the countries that I work in, but like I said, I've lived and worked in them, and I have a lot of friends there now. So just being able to, have that mindset, it is an advantage for sure. Yeah.
Because you speak the same culture, you understand each other. You are able to understand them. Makes
Absolutely,
sense.
yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
Makes total sense.
100%.
But the question still remains: why do you think companies with their own hiring department they want to reach out to external hiring agency?
There's a lot of challenges in the market at the moment, and quite often, internal recruiters, although there are some very, very good internal recruiters out there, their search is only ever one-dimensional. They're only ever selling one project or one product.
Oh,
And for us as external suppliers, I'm not just working with one product or one company. I'm working with, maybe 5 or 10 at the same time, and I'm consulting these 5 or 10 different organizations at the same time on their hiring strategies and managing their processes. So what that does is it enables me to bring a more diverse approach to the search, and it gives the hiring managers an unbiased opinion on what the market looks like, on what the challenges are, and more importantly, what their competitors are doing.
yeah, they always want to know that.
They always know.
So you're saying that because you work with more than one company, you have a better view on the market, and that's the advantage of external hiring agency.
Always, yeah, always.
Always. Oh yeah, makes a lot of sense. Next question. Sham, you mentioned that the markets are difficult. What is difficult about hiring in cybersecurity right now? Do candidates have extreme expectations, or do the companies expect ideal candidates every time?
I think there's high expectations on both sides because security is so important now. And when you care about something, you want to protect it, right?
Definitely.
So companies now are saying, look, this is not just sort of a motivation because internally we want to do it. We want to protect ourselves from external threats, right? So there's also like an external motivation now. Also with like regulations like NIST coming in, DORA, there's now a motivation through regulation actually for companies to be, for companies to invest in their security. So there's all these different reasons now as to why companies are doing it, and this brings challenges in many different ways because companies want the best to meet their requirements and to satisfy regulation, but candidates also know that they're a high value commodity, right?
I like
So
it.
they, so they like to make demands, and so they should, right?
Yeah.
And this is where it makes our job a little bit challenging because you're fighting against your competitors, you're fighting against when you're headhunting staff, you're fighting against offers that come off the back of people handing in their notices. And it's a constant uphill battle in terms of trying to get people to see that the grass is greener somewhere else. And it can be, it's not always, it can be. But yeah, as you can imagine, there's a lot of challenges in between that.
Yeah. I think that always whenever people are faced with a decision where they have to make a choice, they will always be thinking, oh, the grass is greener somewhere else.
Yeah.
So do you have a strategy, a tactic, not to manipulate, but to show the people that, yes, that's how we think, but you should really reconsider what I'm offering?
Well, I take a very transparent approach, right? So my whole approach is, satisfying needs, right? I do both permanent, I do both contract as well. And although contract is my main market, I do a little bit of permanent stuff as well. For contractors, you never really have to sell too hard. They're always looking for the most money that's available, or the most interesting project, or the closest location to where they're based. With permanent staff, of course, there's a harder challenge in trying to convince them that there is better stuff available out there. So my approach is very transparent. It's, what do you do now? What's missing from what you do now? And how does that impact your life? And what could I do to enhance your lifestyle a little bit? What could I offer you to enhance your lifestyle a little bit more? If that's reducing their time that they spend at work in the office, and I can get them more remote work, if I can increase their salary, if I can, get them a better company car, all of these things, can be deciding factors in somebody moving their job, right? Of course, working with more modern technologies is another one. So it's just identifying what motivates them and then finding that.
I really like it when you said that it's about improving the life, because it's about improving the life. You never once mentioned cybersecurity, job, work. It's about improving the life. I really like that we are recording, because I'll be able to rewind that later on.
Cool.
So hiring an external agency, you have to take care of two sides. On the one side, you have the client. On the other side, you have the candidate. And I think you mentioned a little bit how to make sure that the candidate is well taken care of. Now, switching to the other side, can you tell us how to make sure that the client is well taken care of?
Yeah, I mean, look, ultimately, your client is the person. What you have to remember is that your client is the person that pays the bill in the end, right? And you have to make sure that they are satisfied with, one, the hiring process, two, the person that they are hiring, and three, all the aftercare that happens after the hiring process, whether it's contract or permanent. The process needs to be solid. So You have to look at your level of service, and you have to sort of identify what you're going to do that's going to enhance the whole process for the client, right? And it's going to satisfy their need in the end. So, it's important that you sit down with your client and really understand them, and understand their pain points. And I believe that once you sort of understand those pain points and you address them, there's a common interest to satisfy that pain point.
Yeah.
And once you find that mutual ground, it makes your job a lot easier.
That's I think that's a superstar approach, really. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, look, at the end of the day, every business has its pain points, right? It could be growth, it could be skill, it could be a lack of skill, it could be, that there's more work than there are hands that can do it. But for you as an individual, you need to identify which one of those areas is going to motivate you to want to fill that job and to service that client. And once you sort of figure out what motivates you and what part of the job you enjoy working with clients, that's where you make it enjoyable for everyone. And that's why clients keep using you again and again and again, is because they know that you understand where their pain points are and you're motivated to satisfy those pain points.
Once we're finished with the talk, I'm going to write it down,
Okay.
Yeah. So there is a common question in the external agency world: is cold calling dead, or is it alive? Inbound versus outbound calls. Can you tell us a little bit, how is it from your experience? Is it worth calling someone all of a sudden, or do you take more relaxed approach and perhaps text them only when you see that there is a high chance of them being interested in what you're selling?
I'm more old school, Casper, right? So, I will pick up the phone and just make the cold call, right? That's my style.
Aye.
It always has been. It's how I was taught in the beginning. I've never lost that habit. But I've learned that, through managing people over the years, that the style has changed quite a lot, and there's a more softer approach that you can take as well.
Mhm.
So it's been a journey for me to learn that softer approach and to sort of take the bits of that I enjoy and incorporate that into my approach as well. But inbound versus outbound, to answer your question, everything I do is outbound. I enjoy new things. I enjoy creating new things, new departments, new divisions. I enjoy everything because it really sparks my sort of creative side. But when you're creating something new, everything is cold, right? So it's a lot of cold calling. It's a lot of cold emails, cold LinkedIn messages, conversations like this, where it's just a discovery call or fact finding, and then just being resilient and making sure that you stay in contact and follow up and follow up and follow up until it turns into a relationship and then hopefully a sale at some point.
Yeah. On average, can you let us know how many cold activities do you do per week?
I mean, mine are quite high, so I try to target at least 40 new conversations a week with new clients, and that's high for now. In the past, it used to be a lot higher.
Yeah.
Yeah, it used to be a lot higher, but I guess with experience, you bring a more quality approach to the market. So compared to a newbie, I make a lot less phone calls, but I get a lot more out of them.
I remember that when I started, I set up a goal to make around 150 per week. And I did for a couple of weeks. But then after hearing constant no after no after no, I just burned out, I just said, okay, screw it. I'm going to do something else.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where we are, you know. Okay. So inbound versus outbound. So we have two more questions. And the target audience for this podcast is twofold. One, it's people working in cybersecurity, and the other one is people recruiting in cybersecurity industry.
Yeah.
Do you have any? Would you like to say anything to people listening to us?
If you're working in cybersecurity on the recruitment side, do your research and know your stuff, right?
That.
Learn your market, ask questions, ask plenty of questions. There's no such thing as a bad question or a silly question. And understand your clients and their requirements and why they want certain things. The more you know, the better you will perform, because your knowledge builds trust. So as a recruiter, there's nothing worse for a hiring manager to pick up the phone and to be pitched by somebody who knows absolutely nothing about cybersecurity.
It's disgusting.
There's nothing more off-putting for a hiring manager, right? If you're a cybersecurity, if you're an employee in cybersecurity and you do the actual cybersecurity work, whether it's identity access management, whether you work in a SOC team, a NOC team, whether you're a senior person, a project manager, an enterprise architect, a security architect, understand your career trajectory and where you want to go, and what you want to do next. There's plenty of people out there that test the water and just want to see what's available on the market, but don't really have a true direction as to what they want to do in the future. You're very blessed to have a job in cybersecurity. Getting certified is very expensive. The education route's very limited. So you are very blessed to have a job in cybersecurity. So be grateful for what you have. And for those that are trying to get in cybersecurity through certifications, through education, there are a lot of avenues and support available out there. So again, do your research for what avenues are available for education support, financial support, because there's huge motivation for European governments now to invest in cybersecurity, and there's plenty of opportunities out there for you to get a kickstart. But again, know your stuff, do your research, and read about it.
Sham, we have a great opportunity to ask one final question, and this will be about certification in cybersecurity. You're a practitioner, so when you have a role to fill, when you have a person to employ, how certification impacts your decision choice?
A certification proves that you can do the job and that you've had the education to back it. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are the best candidate for the job, though, because there are other elements of the job that don't rely on the certification. For example, one of those might be working with a team. Having social skills, being a clear communicator, digesting information and turning that into, whatever you do to satisfy the requirement. These are all practical parts of the job. So in my opinion, the certification, it isn't the be all and end all. But what it does do is it provides the person who's hiring you with the relative documentation to prove that you've had the education. But don't rely on it. I know loads of people that have got master's degrees, work in supermarkets, right? The document doesn't prove anything if the practice side of it isn't good enough, and the practicing side of it will get tested.
Do you still meet people with all nice job history and all shiny certifications who lack social skills and therefore disqualify themselves?
Yeah, all the time. Like all the time, I meet people that have got the most expensive certifications. They've got, you know, the most high level certifications. You know, they've got so many things to prove in terms of documentation that they are good at the job, but then they sit in front of the hiring manager and they're unable to complete a sentence. You know,
Yikes.
and you know, communication and culture is a big part of hiring. You know, both on contract and perm. So this is where, as a recruiter, you know, a little bit of advice would be: do your due diligence with your candidates, have online meetings with them, do preparation meetings with them, make sure that they look the part, dress the part, speak the part, do your reference checks, speak to their old employers, and make sure that they've got a good employment history, because all of that will only make you feel more secure when your candidates sat in front of the hiring manager. You know, there's nothing worse than sitting, you know, waiting for an interview, feedback, debrief, and you don't know how the interview's gone.
Yeah.
You don't know how the person's going to perform. But if you've done your due diligence beforehand, it kind of gives you a better idea of what the outcome's going to be.
I'm really happy that we met. Ladies and gentlemen, Sham, thank you so much
you,
for the time.
Prosper.